Hi, welcome back to the house. And today we're going to be cooking some chicken enchiladas. But chicken enchiladas, possibly like you would have seen them back in the 1870s, maybe even into the 1920s. This is a very old recipe that we're going to be using here. And throughout the research that we've been doing on enchiladas for the past several months, we're just like we always do, we're going to make our own sauce. We're going to make our own, use our peppers and everything else, make our own sauce. And that's where the magic really begins to happen. And we can learn a lot about our food, about ourselves, and about our world and our history from the enchilada, from the food that we eat. Okay? So come along with me. So to start off with this sauce, it's not going to be a green sauce. Okay? This is going to be a red sauce, traditionally like you would find in the 1870s to 1920s. I'm going to start off here with the New Mexico red chili pods. And I'm going to start off here with the ancho chilies. And this is going to be the base for a very simple sauce. This sauce is the foundation for making these enchiladas, what I think really great, and what gave these old school enchiladas a very different flavor. And as we've gone out and researched, we'll get into that later, but as we've gone out and researched and seen some of these old recipes, these were your two base chilies. So as we're kind of looking at some of these chilies here, we're just going to open up these ancho chilies here, ancho chilies. And you'll see these are a little more wrinkled, a little more dry, right, than this. This is an ancho chili. And we're going to use a couple of these to make our sauce. And then over here, I'm going to whip open my New Mexico red, or you could use some Texas red chili if you wanted to. You can find them. They're very closely related. But suppose you could use a Guajillo chili as well, if you really wanted to as well. This is what these look like. So you can tell the difference between the ancho and the red chili for sure. Now, I'm going to use about two of each. And these things are relatively inexpensive, very affordable. And here I have some water going on in the background because I'm not going to boil these. Okay, so you'll see here, you'll notice I've got my ancho chilies here and I've got my red chili. Ancho, and red chilies here, okay? And they're two very different chilies with different flavors. I'm going to show you real quick how I prepared these. The ancho chili doesn't take much. Just cut the stem off. It's fine. Empty the seeds out of it like you normally would, very nice. Then what I like to do is I like to just take it and tear this thing open, okay? Like so. It's a real simple process. It's not a real complicated. Sometimes people make cooking look a little more complicated, and sometimes they make it look a little too easy. But this is actually a pretty easy dish to make. And this is the ancho. And now we're going to do the red chili here. Okay, I'm just going to take the top off and empty out the seeds. I'm going to get it into something workable here. Now, some people would not do this, but I'm going to toast these. Okay? I'm going to toast these because I think toasting them gives them a very different flavor. Okay? I personally do. I think it gives it a much more authentic, much more real flavor. So let's get these things toasting them. Now, you see I've got my griddle going here, right? No oil, nothing like this. In fact, I'm going to turn it down for just a second. I'm going to put this thing face down onto my griddle. You'll notice a little bit how the color will change, okay? I'm going to put a red chili down, and I'm also going to put one of the ancho chilies down on here. And we're only using just a few peppers, but you'll see how the color begins to change in this thing a little bit. See how the color is starting to change? That's nice. That's exactly how I want it. I mean, you could certainly do this on a comal or something like that, but I think toasting it gives it a much better, more nuttier flavor, a more um, crisp flavor, if you will. And then I'm just gonna let this go for just a couple of seconds, and we'll get this thing going on the other side. Now, this, oh, it's hot. Hot, hot, hot. You might be able to see on camera how that's changed colors. It's gotten a little bit lighter. That's what we're looking for on these chilies. All right, we'll be back. Okay, so now I have my chilies roasted here, and I am not going to boil them. I am going to take these chilies, and I'm going to set them in a bowl of pretty hot tap water, okay? Now, some people will tell you to boil these chilies. I don't do that. I think that takes some of the flavor out of this chili, out of it, what we're doing here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put them in this bowl of warm water. I'm going to put a plate on top of them, like so, for about 20 minutes. And then we're going to come back and we're going to finish making these enchiladas. Finish making this sauce for these enchiladas. I think you're going to really love it. Okay, so now it's been about 20 minutes that our chilies have been rehydrating here in this bowl of water. Now, again, I don't boil these because I think that it takes way too much of the flavor out of the chilies. But you certainly could if you wanted to. I don't, okay? But that's just a personal preference. Now I'm going to take the plate out of here. You'll see that these have rehydrated quite a bit, okay? Now, I'm going to reach over here and grab a spoon. And I'm going to just taste this water here that's coming out of here. If it's got too much heat or maybe it's a little too bitter, I'm not going to use it. For me, this is fine. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these chilies and I'm going to put them directly into this high-speed blender here. Okay? Just like so. Okay? I'm probably going to use about half of this water that's in here. About half of it, maybe. Probably. And then just about another half of regular tap water going in there. Just a little bit now, not a lot. Don't forget your salt. This is going to take a good amount of salt. I'm probably going to use maybe probably 1 to 1.5 teaspoons. I'll test this again here in a minute to see. And I'm also going to throw in just a little bit of black pepper into this thing, but not a lot. And I know one thing you'll notice that's not going in here is cumin. And we've talked about this before in the more traditional recipes. And I know some of you folks out there who are in the Southwest are just going crazy that I'm not putting cumin in this. Cumin was not traditionally used in our recipes back in the day. So now I'm going to blend this. Okay, so now that I've ran this thing through my high-speed blender here, I'm going to test it and see, because it should be on the edge of being salty and nice and salty. And I'm just going to put a little bit here on my hand here, and then it's got a little heat. I'm going to add a little more salt to it. Now, you can do what you want, but this should have a nice balance of heat and salt. And that's the beauty of cooking like this. Is I'm going to probably go with another half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of salt in here. I'm just going to give it another quick pulse here in my blender. And I'm just pulsing it. I'm not just going at this thing full liquefied bore. Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to try again for just another little speck on my hand. Try it. Oh, that's good. Yeah, perfect. So it's got a little heat and a little saltiness to it. And now it's ready. Leave it alone. Don't touch it. We're going to do something else with this sauce. Now, some people would not strain this sauce. I am going to strain it because I like the smooth texture of this sauce. I have a high-speed blender. When I put things through this high-speed blender, sometimes, even with this high-power blender, I'll still get some of the skins of the chilies in there, and that's not what I really want. I want this sauce to be very smooth, very runny, not very thick. It's going to be thickened on its own. And that's why I'm going to strain it. I'm just going to use just a regular kitchen strainer to do this. Come in here and I'll show you what I'm going to do. Okay, so I have my sauce here, right? I'm just going to dump my sauce right into here, okay? Now, I'm going to take just a regular kitchen spatula. I'm going to work it around here. And let me see if I can move this over here a little bit for you to see. I'm just going to work this through a little bit. Not very complicated. And I'm letting this sauce strain through here. So that way I end up with a very thin, very smooth sauce. Because sometimes even the blender doesn't really thin it out like I want it to. It still leaves those chunks of the skin in there, like I say. And that's not what I'm shooting for. So what I'm doing here is just thinning this sauce completely out. And I want as much of the juice in the sauce as I possibly can. I'm going to come through here and I'm just going to clean off the top of my blender. Put some of that in there. This is a really nice. Don't waste it. Do not waste this at all. Because a lot of this is still flavor, okay? And then what it's going to leave you with, kind of, is this. This is all the skins of the chilies. They're going to stay behind in this strainer. Over here, we are going to have, get rid of that real quickly. Okay. Now over here, we're going to have our sauce. And this is what our sauce is going to look like. Kind of thin, but not terribly thin. Again, I'm going to taste it just a bit on my hand here. Very nice. Very nice. This is the sauce. Okay, so now we're going to start working on softening our tortillas. I'm going to show you how this works. It's not a very complicated process at all. I've got my sauce ready to go here. Over here I have my oil. This is just, I'm using lard, melted lard down in this thing. You'll notice that's what I use for a lot of my enchiladas for softening the tortillas. It's a little controversial. Some people will say to dip them in the sauce. You certainly could. But all the recipes that we found when I was doing the research on this over the past several months was to soften them in melted lard. So that's what we're going to do here. And there's a very simple process to this. These do not have to be fresh corn tortillas. I would prefer if they were, but they don't have to be. I'm just going to take my tortilla. I'm just going to lay it in here like so. Couple of seconds. Be very careful. You could use a spatula or tongs if you want. It doesn't matter. I'm softening this tortilla like so, just to get it nice. In fact, I'll show you how to do it here with a pair of tongs if you want. Be very careful because you don't want to tear the tortilla at all. Okay, you don't see. Sometimes I just find it easier to use my fingers, but whatever you're comfortable with. I'm going to soften some of these tortillas. Okay, so now that I have my corn tortillas done over here on the side, I'm going to prep my chicken, and this is just a chicken that I roasted on the grill a little bit earlier. Salt and pepper. You could certainly use a rotisserie chicken with this, but this is just a chicken I threw on the grill. Only salt and pepper. That's the only seasoning I've used. I'll show you why. Okay, so now we're going to break this up into the bowl here, right? Like so. I'll hold this up here so you can see it. Okay. And now I'm going to do a little thing here. I'm going to take a little bit of this sauce that we put in here. We're going to just put just a little bit, not a lot, just a little into there. We're going to mix it in here until we get it nice and fairly evenly coated. And this chicken is going to taste wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And there you go. That's what that's going to look like. Now, I have two different kinds of cheeses here. Okay, I have the queso de mayonita that I've shredded up here a little bit. And we've talked about this before in some of the other videos. It's a much more buttery cheese here. And then over here, I just have some regular farm cheese, or what back then they would have called it ranch cheeses. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of this red sauce here, put some of it in my pan, my baking dish here on the bottom. I'll just take my spatula and I'll just kind of flutter it around here a little bit. Whatever you want to use is fine with me. Put a little bit of this chili sauce in here, right? I think my burner is still very hot, but it's okay. If you can see some of the heat coming off of this, the residual heat, that's okay. So now we're going to start assembling the enchiladas, and probably should not, it probably wouldn't hurt anything. But you see, I'm just kind of moving this mixture around just a little bit. It's perfectly fine as it is. Okay. I'm going to take one of these corn tortillas, put just a little bit of chicken. I know some of you are saying, oh my God, that's not enough. Don't worry about it. Okay. A little sprig of the Mennonite cheese, a little bit of the ranch cheese. And we're going to take this and we're just going to roll it. This is a rolled enchilada. Okay. You see? I'm going to put this in the pan like so. Again, a little bit of that chicken over here. A little bit of our cheeses. A little bit of our cheeses here. And then we're going to roll like so. Just like so. And I know some of the folks out west, southwest, really say that you should put cumin in everything and you should boil the peppers, and that's fine. You can do that. I'm not going to do that. This is just how I'm going to do this. And you know. A lot of people have different ways of doing this. For the purposes of this series, we're only doing it the very traditional old San Antonio way of doing this, which is a very classic method. You see, these are actually pretty thick enchiladas. Now you'll notice there's not any sour cream, there's not any onion, nothing like that. The flavors of this chili sauce are going to stand on their own, and they will be just perfectly fine. These enchilada, that one's kind of splitting open, and if it does, it's okay. You just filled it a little too much is all. Now, one of the interesting things about this is everyone has their own kind of style. And as we're doing this here, one thing we've learned is you can certainly do this many, many, many different ways. And you see here what I'm talking about here. Because in a minute, I'm going to take this and do it a very traditional twist to this. You see that? Looks beautiful, right? Looks really great. Okay, so now what I'm going to do with the rest of this sauce, okay, and we'll bring you in here and show you. I'm going to drizzle it over the top of my enchiladas, right? Just drizzle it over the top. I don't want them swimming in this stuff. I don't want it overly coated, but I want it a nice, good coat on here, right? One of these days when we make this show famous on YouTube, we're going to have a big kitchen. But yeah. So now I'm going to take the rest of this queso de millonita, this Minianite cheese, and put it over this, over the top of this here. You'll see. Nice. Little bits of this. And then I'm going to come over here with the rest of this ranch cheese and sprinkle it over the top before these things go in the oven. And these will be some really nice, cheesy, flavorful enchiladas. And there is one more thing that I'm going to do here before I delve into this. So I'm going to come over here to my cutting board. Earlier today, I went and picked out in the field near the San Antonio River, pulled up some of these wild onions. Okay. This would have been a good find at some of the stalls back in the day, right? For sure they would have used it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to thinly and finely chop using that rock and chop method, right? Of some of these onions here, you see? And these wild onions would have definitely given it some flavor, and it certainly would have given it a more earthy flavor, because these do have a different taste than just regular onions. And I've washed them and all that good stuff. So there's no sandy loam on there, okay? You see this? And this, my friends, is going to be absolutely stunning. Now, what I would do is just stop there, right? But because the Canary Islanders were here, there's one more little step that maybe the Canary Islanders would have done. I'll show you. So if the Canary Islanders could have gotten their hands on one, they would have probably thrown a little bit of lime in there. Okay? And that's okay. But we're not going to go crazy with our lime. Just going to take it, a couple little sprigs over the top. I'm not even going to do the craziness of it here, okay? But you see that? Look at that. And that ranch cheese is going to give this some nice saltiness. And this would have depended on the vendor that you went to. But that's what we're going to do. So now I'm going to pull these things out of the oven and we're going to see what they look like. We're going to plate them up. And then we're going to go talk about this because I think you're going to really enjoy this. Look at this. Ah, look at that. All right. Let's plate a few of these up. We'll go talk about it. Okay, so I'm back here in the studio. I've got this plate of red chicken enchiladas. And my goodness, you are in for a real treat. This is an old dish prepared in the style of maybe the 1870s to 1920s. A little bit of onion, a little bit of heat, a lot of cheesiness, buttery cheesiness. This wild South Texas onion gives it a great flavor. The chilies. It's just something that you have to experience. And we're trying some of these really older recipes and learning about the people and the culture and the places, you know. San Antonio is my home turf. You have just a hint of the tanginess from the lime. I'm telling you. You'll never go back to these modern creamy enchiladas. And some of the recipes that we've tried we didn't like. I didn't like them. My wife didn't like them. Some of the styles of cooking we just didn't feel right with. Some of them we just couldn't get the ingredients for. We couldn't find the ingredients. Some of these ingredients are very old worldy. But that's what makes them beautiful. Is not just, this goes back to a time when cooking was a necessity, not choices. And that was the beauty of this. Cooking with these wild onions that you find growing down by the banks of the river on some of the very limited public land that we have these days, especially in Texas. But to think this was commonplace to our ancestors. This was commonplace to the chili queens. This was commonplace to the cowboys. This was commonplace to the Canary Islanders who were here. These old dishes bring us closer to our heritage. And perhaps that's one of the most important things. I'm Matt. I'm going to go enjoy these enchiladas. And stay tuned for more in this series. We'll see you in the next one. Bye now.